Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to another classic review of a past wrestling event. As this time around, it is WCW Clash of the Champions 23, which took place back on June 17th, 1993, and this was the first ever 2-hour Clash of Champions. Nearly every previous Clash of Champions event before this was 2 hours and 30 minutes. And, of course, it was aired on TBS. The show was commentated by Tony Schiavone and Jesse the Body Ventura. And we get, not even 5 minutes after they come on the air, we get on with the show, as the first match was scheduled to see the All-American Ron Simmons challenge Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff for the World Television Championship. However, Schiavone and Ventura announced right after coming on the air that Orndorff had a groin injury and Simmons would wrestle Dirty Dick Slater. Slater comes to the ring with Orndorff, and the crowd at the Scope in Norfolk, Virginia — I don't think that building exists anymore — the fans were all over Orndorff. They were chanting Paula, and Schiavone pointed that out. And Schiavone said that Dustin Rhodes started, and Jesse Ventura said, "Dustin Rhodes and Tony Schiavone, you deserve a little credit." And Schiavone says, "I'll take no credit for that." The match gets underway, and Simmons is dominant in the beginning. He hits an atomic drop, Slater tries a double leg takedown and works on Ron's leg, but Simmons kicks him and monkey flips him, scoops body slam. That's a flying shoulder block, and then he goes out to the floor to regroup with Orndorff. Eventually, Simmons goes for that 3-point stance, but Orndorff grabs his ankle. Slater then hits an elbow to Simmons' head and takes over. Slater hits a swinging neck breaker and goes for the pin, but Simmons gets his foot on the rope, and Slater and Orndorff think Slater won the match. But referee's arguing with Orndorff. Slater eventually turns around, and before Simmons could do anything, Simmons scoops up Slater. Slater escapes. Slater goes for a clothesline and misses. Slater gets scooped up by Simmons for a power slam, and Ron pins him to win the matchup. Now, 6 months before this, Ron Simmons lost the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. So to see him go from being on top to opening up a Clash of Champions, and let alone working with the late Paul Orndorff for the World Television Championship, that was a big step down for Ron Simmons. I am sorry. Then, after the first commercial break, they come back. We see Eric Bischoff and Larry Zbyszko on an interview platform, and they talk about the NWA World Title match later in the show, as Barry Windham, the Lone Wolf, would be defending against Too Cold Scorpio. And I forgot what Zbyszko said. I mean, I'm sorry to say this. Zbyszko was a good wrestler in his day, but wasn't really big on him as an announcer or commentating wrestling. But Bischoff introduces Michael Let's Get Ready to Rumble Buffer, who was known for re-announcing boxing matches. And they talk the tag title match later in the show, and Buffer thinks that he would go with the veterans to win that matchup. Then Bischoff sends it to bring it out to Gary Michael Capetta. We get our next matchup, as we see Marcus Alexander, before he was Buff the Stuff Bagwell, go one-on-one with Lord Steven Regal, accompanied to the ring by Sir William. Now, Sir William, for those who don't know, was Australian wrestler Bill Dundee, father of JC Ice, Jamie Dundee of PG-13 fame. And Regal had just recently been repackaged as this aristocrat from England who, well, he really is from England, acting like a British aristocrat who turns his nose up on everybody. Because earlier in 1993, months earlier, Regal had debuted as a babyface. He was in the World Television Title Tournament where he defeated the Barbarian, but then lost to Johnny B. Bad. And I also remember him losing to Barry Windham. But this whole aristocrat snob gimmick they gave him, really freshened him up. And Regal kind of helped introduce a new style of wrestling. And boy, Regal really got to showcase what he can do in WCW. They have Regal and Bagwell have some great mat work to start the match until Regal hits a chop block to Bagwell's knee, and then he starts working on does a lot of leg work on Bagwell's knee. Eventually, Bagwell hits a enziguri, and then Bagwell eventually made a comeback. He goes through a hip toss, but I don't know, it was going to be like a hip toss or it would be like a power slam. He tries to pin Regal. Regal kicked out of it. Bagwell goes for the O'Connor roll, and referee makes a count, but Regal reverses it, holds on to a handful of tights, pins Bagwell to win the matchup. Then, after a commercial break, Eric Bischoff interviews Max Payne on the interview platform. Payne was scheduled to wrestle Johnny B. Bad because about a month before this show, they were supposed to wrestle each other on WCW Saturday Night. Before the match, Payne attacked Bad and had put Bad in the painkiller armbar. One of my friends referred to it as the Pain Maker, and and he stole Johnny's Bad Blaster, which was this looked like a, I don't know, it's not an actual gun. It was a thing. I guess you pull or press a button and it shoots out confetti. Payne says to Bischoff, "I sat in the lair and I thought long and hard, and the right thing to do is give him his Bad Blaster back." So Johnny B. Bad comes up to the platform. He's saying, "Hey, that's mine." And Payne says, "Hold on. I said the right thing to give you your Bad Blaster back." Payne pushes Bischoff, and in a sense of poor execution, Bad closed his eyes while Payne set the Bad Blaster off in Bad's face, and Bad falls off the platform, the interview platform, and Bischoff says, "My goodness, Max Payne, what have you done?" And Payne says, "Consider it returned, Bad." And then you see the late Tom Zink, the Z-Man, among others, trying to help Bad as he's struggling to see. And as a result, they eventually had Bad wrestle with a mask on for like the next 2 months to sell the blindness / disfigurement. They come back from commercial break. Max Payne's in the ring. Gary Capetta announces to the crowd that Johnny B. Bad's unable to compete, and Payne interrupts Gary by saying that means that Johnny B. Bad has forfeited to Max Payne. But then the Z-Man comes running down the ring. He says, "When you get off, shoot me the eyes off, call him an egomaniac." Payne goes for a right hand, and he misses. Z-Man starts brawling with him to the point he hits they called it a super kick, but it was like a karate kick. It's a drop kick. Payne reverses a whip to the corner. Z-Man's shoulder hits the turnbuckle, and Payne applies the painkiller armbar. And the referees, two referees come in the ring. They're telling him, "Let go of the hold." And Jesse Ventura says, he don't have to let go of the hold. It ain't a match," which is true. And eventually, Payne lets go, and right before leaving the ring, they went to commercial again. Don't know the real story why the Johnny B. Bad Max Payne match did not happen. Then we come back from commercial break, and we see Too Cold Scorpio challenging the Lone Wolf Barry Windham for the NWA World Championship. And here's this fun trivia fact. This was the very first match in WCW that Michael Let's Get Ready to Rumble Buffer ring announced. Very good matchup that these two managed to put together. Windham, of course, being the veteran, had much more experience, and he really slowed it down when he had the advantage. Early in the match, Scorpio hits a drop kick. He countered. Windham put Scorpio in an armbar, but Scorpio countered with a scoop slam. Windham eventually hits a top rope clothesline, a body slam, a knee drop, a DDT. a gut-wrench suplex, hits Scorpio with a drop kick. Let's see. Hits Scorpio with a Samoan drop, a belly-to-back suplex. Eventually, Scorpio avoids a belly-to-back suplex, responds with one of his own. Wyndham tried for the superplex on the turnbuckle, but Scorpio threw him off, and then he did a twisting splash on the top rope. Wyndham kicked out of that one. Scorpio hit a Hurricane Rana. He did like a rolling pin. Not sure what kind of pin that's called, but Wyndham kicked out of that. Scorpio hit a super kick. He hit a flip splash from the apron. Wyndham kicked out of that. Hits a top rope drop kick. I think Wyndham kicked out of that one. Wyndham eventually throws Scorpio down to the floor. Scorpio lands on his feet. He comes up the apron. He tries to launch himself over the ropes into the ring. Wyndham catches him with a right hand, hits him with a leap, as what Tony Schiavone called a leaping DDT. Not quite like the spike DDT that Gangrel would use. And Wyndham pinned Scorpio to retain the NWA World Championship. Now, the thing was, Wyndham won the NWA title a few months earlier at Super Brawl 3 from the Great Muta. After the match, after that matchup, beating Muta, he was putting the belt on, and Ric Flair, who had just returned to WCW after spending nearly 2 years in the WWF, Wyndham turns around, he sees Flair, and they kind of left us hanging back then. And since from that point on, Wyndham was asked about Ric Flair, and he kept walking away from Tony Schiavone, Jesse Ventura, and I don't know what other interviewers they had in WCW back at that time. Okay, come back from commercial break, and Schiavone said to the viewers at home if they wanted to order a video cassette of the show, they could call an 800 number if they have credit cards, and there was an address if people want to pay in the mail with check or money order. Then they sent it to Eric Bischoff in the back, and he interviews Sting, the Natural, Dustin Rhodes, and the late Davey Boy Smith about a 6-man tag that they had with Ravishing Rick Rude, Sid Vicious, and Vader. And Dustin was feuding with Rude over the U.S. title at the time, and Dustin said, "Ravishing Rick Rude, your number is up." And can't remember what else they all said, but they went to commercial after the interview. They come back, we had the 6-man tag, which sees Rick Rude, Sid Vicious, and Vader, who at the time was WCW World Champion, covered in the ring by Colonel Rob Parker and the late Harley Race, as they did battle with Sting, Dustin Rhodes, and Davey Boy Smith. Okay, early going, Sting and Rude start the match. Sting has Rude up for a press slam. Vader and Sid come in the ring. Sting throws Rude at Sid and Vader. They catch him, and then Sid and Vader try to throw Rude at Sting, but Sting moves out of the way. And Sting is like going nuts on Vader, and Sid's like bouncing back and forth between the ropes. Sting, I guess, tried to throw a punch, but Sid reacted way too soon, but Rude grabs Sting, and eventually Sting tags in. Sting tagged in Dustin. Rhodes and Rude are going at it. Rhodes had Rude down for a pin. Vader went for a splash, but he accidentally splashed Rude. Davey and Sid were in the ring. Davey body slams Sid. Dustin was in there with Vader. He beats Vader down in the corner, gives him a suplex. Vader hits Dustin with a clothesline. Then he hits a Vader bomb off the second rope. Rude gets tagged in. He hits a front suplex on Dustin, and you can hear Rude clear as day say, "You ain't shit, Rhodes." Well, it was live TV, so I guess they couldn't censor that. Or maybe there was no such thing as tape delay back then. For those who don't know what tape delay is, that's when it's like if you're watching a live sporting event or something on live television, what you see on the TV, especially since television went digital in 2009, what you see is like what you see on a live event. What you see on a TV set is a good 5-10 seconds behind what was actually happening at that moment. I know it's tough to explain, but not everybody gets it. Alright. Vader beat down Dustin in the corner. Then came that spot that Vader did in nearly every one of his matches where he jumps off the second rope and he takes a power slam in midair. Vader tagged Rude back in. Rude went for a tombstone pile driver. Rhodes reversed it. Gives Rude the tombstone. Dustin's on top. I think Sid broke up the pinfall. Dustin had seemingly tagged Sting, but the referee was arguing with Vader and Sid. And, man. Sting and Davey go after Sid and Vader. Eventually, Sting tries for a Stinger Splash out on the floor, but he ends up hitting the guardrail. Vader grabs the Halliburton briefcase, which Rude had the U.S. Championship belt kept in, because he had taken possession of the belt after Dustin had won the U.S. belt tournament months earlier. Vader hits Rhodes with the briefcase. Rude pins Rhodes to win the match, and after the match, Vader grabs Davey, power bombs him, and Rude was going to hit, I guess, Rhodes with the briefcase, but Sting grabs it out of his hands, and the heel skedaddle out of the ring. Good match. These 6 matches put together, and by the way, the crowd for this show was really into this event, especially the 6-man tag, the NWA title match, even a bit louder than usual for the first 2 matches. Then we come back from commercial break, and Eric Bischoff and Larry Zbyszko say, it's time now for the World Tag Team title match. And Bischoff asks Zbyszko your prediction, and Zbyszko says, to be the men, you've got to beat the men. And Ric Flair and Arn Anderson come to the ring first, and they challenge the Hollywood Blondes, stunning Steve Austin and the late Brian Pillman Sr. This all stemmed from Rick's Flair for the Gold interview segment at the time. And Flair and the Hollywood Blondes were the guests, and they referred to Arn thought Arn was a statue, and they went so far to call them old. And then eventually the Blondes mocked the interview segment by dressing up as Flair and Arn, calling it a Flair for the Old. I don't know if that's on YouTube anywhere. So this was for the tag team title, 2 out of 3 falls, and this was the second. And also, Michael, Let's Get Ready to Rumble Buffer ring announced this matchup. The first fall in the early dawn, Pillman and Arn start the match, and Pillman is kind of like mocking Flair. He's doing a strut, and he woos and acts like his back is hurting. Eventually, I forgot what Arn did to Pillman, and then Pillman's like down on the mat, and Pillman tags Austin, and Arn's screaming, "Get in here!" And Austin comes in, and you can read Austin's lips clear as day. He says, "Oh, it's right there, fat boy." And Jesse Ventura said, Austin making reference to the belly, calling him fat boy. Eventually, Arn, and Austin are going at it. I think they were part of the Dangerous Alliance in WCW a year earlier. Arn takes Austin down with a leg sweep, and then he does this to Austin, tags Flair in. Flair and Austin go at it, and Flair, typical chop in the corner, punches. He grabs Austin by the jaw. Arn's brought back into the match. He's working on Austin's arm. Eventually, the Hollywood Blondes, I think Pillman took one of those towels they carried the ring to, and was choking Arn with it, and the Blondes took over. Arn eventually, actually, one funny spot happens is Arn's like slumped on the ropes, trying to get a tag. Austin gets a running start. He tries to like jump, leaps, and tries where he would like put his legs over Arn's neck. Arn moves out of the way. Austin's legs like hit the ropes, but Austin comes back and lands on his feet, and he does the Hollywood Blondes lights, camera, action thing. But he turns around. Arn nails Austin with a vicious DDT, Arn eventually tags Flair in. I think Austin had tagged Pillman in. I don't know. I could be wrong about that. Flair hits Austin with an elbow to the chest. He goes out to the floor. Flair's got Pillman in the corner, does the 10 punches. The Blondes go for a double clothesline, and they miss. Arn trips Austin from the outside. Flair hits a flying forearm, pins Pillman to win the first fall. And funny thing is, Michael Buffer, it was his first night on the job. He was ready to announce Flair and Anderson as the new tag team champions. Good thing they had gone to commercial break before the announcement was made official. They come back from commercial. The second fall begins with Flair and Pillman, who started the first fall. And Flair mocks Pillman by, doing this. And Flair and Pillman, they have a chop fest. They chop each other as a chop fest. Flair chopped Austin after taking his bump in the corner. And then Pillman hits Austin from behind. Pillman hits Flair from behind, knocking him down to the floor. Austin suplexes Flair on the floor. Then he picks Flair up, drops him neck first on the guardrail. Pillman chokes Flair with the towel. Austin superplexes Flair off the top rope. Flair and Pillman hit head-to-head as they were running the ropes. Flair tags Arn in. He backdrops Austin. Hits him with a forearm in the midsection. Then he hits a spine buster. And then eventually Pillman chop blocks Arn again. Austin goes to the pin, but Arn kicks out. And they both work on Arn's leg. Arn eventually hits Pillman with an enziguri. Arn was prone on the canvas. Pillman jumps off the second rope, but he's doing this at Flair. Pillman jumps. He catches Arn. Well, he doesn't catch it. Arn's boot catches Pillman in the face. Arn tags Flair. He's cleared house on both Blondes. Flair tosses Pillman over the top rope, which was an automatic DQ at WCW, but the referee, I think, deliberately, I don't know if he deliberately avoided seeing it, or, well, of course, the referee knew how the match was going to end. Flair hits Austin with a belly-to-back suplex, and then he goes to put the figure 4 on, but out comes the lone wolf, Barry Windham. He jumps off the top rope, attacks Flair while he and Austin are down on the mat. And eventually, Paul Roma, who became part of the Four Horsemen a month prior at the first ever Slamboree pay-per-view, Roma attacks Austin and Pillman, and then Roma and Anderson, they eventually get Windham off of Flair. And officially Flair and Arn won the second fall by disqualification, winning the match in 2 straight falls. But because the second fall was on disqualification, they did not get the tag team title. Windham is interviewed by Tony Schiavone, and Windham, who was dodging the question about Flair for months, Windham says, "Right there, that's how much Ric Flair wants of me." And he says, "Flair, you don't deserve to be the world champion." He said, "You walked away from it, and I took it." Well, and while this interview's going on, this crazy guy with a beard in the crowd, he keeps going, "Woo! Woo!" And then eventually, Flair goes after Windham, and they brawl out on the floor, and before Roma, Anderson, and I noticed Doug Dillinger come out to break it up, and then they go off the air. Well, the last 3 matches of this show, what really made the show great. The sad thing is that let's see, Paul Orndorff, Dick Slater, Rick Rude, Vader, Harley Race, Davey Boy Smith, Brian Pillman, and Brian Pillman Sr., who were all on this show, have all since passed away. But yeah, I mean, I'm talking about WCW 1992 being great when Bill Watts was in charge. I don't think 1993 wasn't as great as 92, but I think it was still an okay year or good year for WCW for one reason or another. But let me know what you think about this classic Clash of Champions 23, which I just got done reviewing.